Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, death slaves, serfs, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm useful idiot. Welcome, and let's go global and look at the shitstorm that's been unleashed since this UN resolution condemning Israeli settlements, and the fact that Obama abstained this time, so it passed unanimously. And granted, there will be some repercussions. That Israel has been very vociferous about the fact that now the door is unlocked, and Palestinians have some legal channels through the UN in which to register their complaints. And so we can see some interesting things develop. But I did a video already, of course, talking about the fact that in some ways, yes, could be a parting shot by the Obama administration. And I think the message he's sending, at least from everything I understand, is the fact that 8 years Netanyahu has had an opportunity to perhaps come to some two-state solution, and they've talked about a two-state solution. But as I've also done videos that talk about the fact that the idea of a two-state solution has been a bullshit peace process since the very beginning for 100 years. That the whole idea that the Israeli government is going to support a two-state solution, and the bottom line is, the funny thing is that the two-state solution is the only thing that's going to bring peace to that area. So I think the recent John Kerry speech and the Obama administration stance perhaps is the correct one. We need to bring Israel to the negotiating table once and for all, divide up this land. Of course, I know it's a lot more complicated than that because of numerous things, and one of them is the settlements at the heart of this UN resolution. So now what we have, looking back historically, of course, is always the most interesting to me. So let's before I go over recent events, let's look at the history a little bit. And as usual, I attach all the articles below and links so you can check out this material for yourself and decide for yourself. But over the last 7 years, Obama has not permitted passage of any Security Council resolution specifically critical of Israel. So this whole idea that Obama has been so hostile and so anti-Israel and has sold them out is just a politicized campaign for the media and for Netanyahu, because, like I say, over 7 years, Obama's not permitted passage of any Security Council resolution specifically critical of Israel. And the records show that since 1967, every other U.S. president has allowed or voted for Security Council resolutions critical of Israel. So, in fact, and contrary to what we see in the media and all this politicization, Obama has been more protective of Israel than any other American president as far as the UN is concerned. Under LBJ, there were 7 Security Council resolutions that were allowed to pass. There was Nixon, there was 15. Gerald Ford, there was 2. Jimmy Carter, there was 14. George H.W. Bush, there was 9. Under Clinton, there was an all-time low, 3. George W. Bush, there was 6. And then the all-time most Security Council resolutions against Israel was under Reagan, 21. And one of them, incidentally, was for the 1981 Israel attack on the Iraqi nuclear reactor, which I've done a separate video on, and I'll also attach that below. But at the time, that particular resolution under Reagan called for Israel to put its nuclear sites under international safeguards. And of course, as everyone knows, to this day, Israel has never been required to declare their nuclear program, their nuclear weapons program, even though everyone else is expected to. And at the time, they gave a very interesting response. The Israeli cabinet said, quote, "With profound regret, we note that the U.S., our friend and ally, had lent its hand to the grave wrong done Israel," unquote, just for requiring them to put their nuclear program under international scrutiny. But under Reagan, Israel was criticized for the annexation of the Golan Heights, criticized for military activities in Lebanon, criticized for operations against the PLO in Tunisia, and criticized for activities in occupied territories. And under George H.W. Bush, they were criticized for deportation of Palestinians and kidnapping a Lebanese religious teacher. And then how many under Obama? Up to now, 0. So in historical context, this whole idea about the way Obama's been painted is really amazing, particularly because he's been a good friend of Israel. He just approved another package of $40 billion in aid to Israel over the next 10 years, has continued to fund their Iron Dome system missile protection umbrella against rockets, and for all intents and purposes has been a very good friend to Israel. But now we have people like Lindsey Graham coming out saying that, quote, Obama is not just giving the finger to Bibi, he's putting the entire Jewish state at risk, unquote. So leave it to Lindsey Graham for a little bit of hysteria, and then referring to his buddy Netanyahu as Bibi. And then we have all the repercussions now. Israel is reassessing its UN ties. This is what I'm talking about, a shitstorm. It's how dare anyone criticize Israel's policies, let alone the international community, that all these countries in the Security Council have helped Israel over the years, and now it means nothing because all the international community agrees that Israel needs to get serious about the peace process. But Israel said it will reassess its UN ties after this resolution. It's cutting off funding of $6.3 million to various UN agencies that they will talk about more soon. Apparently there will be no Israeli aid to any of the countries involved, including Senegal, who generated this resolution. Netanyahu then summoned to Israel 10 ambassadors from countries on the UN Security Council that voted for the resolution. So he's going to browbeat all of them, and now has come out and blamed Obama for orchestrating this entire episode, which is also hilarious. But he's getting so out of hand that even the moderates and the progressives in Israel are calling him out. And Haaretz, there was an article saying that Netanyahu is out of control, and the only thing left for him now is to have some sanctions against Antarctica. But as I mentioned in the previous video, when the resolution was first passed, of course, Israel would be defiant, and they would build and expand more settlements as a reaction to this. And sure enough, a headline of the very December 26th, day after Christmas, in the New York Times, defiant Israel vows to expand its settlements, almost word for word what I said. And it's not rocket scientists. It's just you look at the previous look in history, and you find that this is what Israel does. They are defiant. They'll build more settlements. The 600 units that they're talking about now are already in the works and already approved, but they will move ahead on the 5,600 units that will be built in Jerusalem, a lot of it on Palestinian land, and this, like I say, in defiance of the UN resolution. But a Jerusalem court has canceled the request for the time being, and trying to show a little moderation under the circumstance. And then Netanyahu warned that Israel does not, quote, turn the other cheek, unquote. So, wow, just amazing stuff coming out. And Benjamin Netanyahu is indeed out of control. But to look at the heart of the matter, once again, we have Democrats and Republicans and rhinos all condemning Obama over this, and I think it's a good move. We need to bring Israel to be serious about a two-state solution, bring them to peace talks, and that's what John Kerry said in the speech. And I'm no fan of John Kerry by any stretch, but the speech, although he has nothing to do with it, the speech or the policy, I think it's very accurate that we need to get the settlements halted. We need to get the land divided. We need to get a peace settlement. We need to get a two-state solution, and somebody needs to get serious about it. And now, of course, with the incoming Trump administration, the entire two-state process will be in jeopardy. And so this is Obama giving a shot to Benjamin Netanyahu, but also giving a shot to the incoming administration and Trump. And of course, Trump has come out and said that, quote, things will be very different in his administration, quote. And I'm afraid he is probably telling the truth. But I've attached a video below in the comment section, not in the links, that tells more why Americans shouldn't support these Israeli settlements in Palestinian lands. It goes into the history a lot more, and it needs to be covered. And let's remember that since 1967, 500,000 Israelis live in 230 illegal settlements that have been condemned internationally since they've been set up by the UN decade after decade after decade, and it needs to be addressed. And the, the bottom line is that until the settlements are stopped and the land is settled, then there will be no peace. So anyway, and then to the bottom line I want to add to this is just the oddity of a couple things. One is Netanyahu's Christmas message to Christians and Merry Christmas in the United States, and it's just so disingenuous considering Israeli policies towards Christians. For example, if you try to postulate Christianity or hand out Bibles in Israel, you can be arrested, put in jail. So there are no lovers of Christianity in Israel, and but he's only appealing to the Christian Zionists who support the right-wing Netanyahu policies. But the other thing that, of course, gets me about this is just how does it get to the point where I thought we were supposed to be electing leaders around the globe who were supposed to be responsible and adults and show good judgment, and to see these kind of personal animosities develop in this pettiness and this vindictiveness, and at this level, on a global level, where it affects the lives of billions of people around the globe, and it's just a disgusting spectacle to see, just this personal shit that goes down between world leaders, and they need to leave that out because they're not paid to do their personal shit. They're supposed to represent people. So anyway, so there we have it. You post UN resolution against Israel, the shitstorm that's going on now, and I'm sure there'll be more to come in the next few days, the next few weeks, and then Trump will take office, and then of course Netanyahu will be happy. But for how long? I'm Useful Idiot. Don't you be one too.